Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Sports Show with myself, Conor Porter, and Joe Stanley here. Only the two of us here today, but we still got plenty of action to talk about. The Premier League, of course, finished over the weekend. We had the Premier League last day, Conte under pressure, managerial merry-go-round, who's going to stay and who's going to go by the end of the year, and also the England squad selection coming up this Wednesday as well. That's all coming up on the Let's Talk Sports Show today. I hope you enjoy and make sure you listen here on Calon 105 FM. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Sports Show here on Calon 105 FM. That was Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons, a beautiful song. I don't know if you're all Madden NFL 18 fans. You're probably not, Joe, because you don't look like the kind of guy that plays American football games, do you? No, not a chance whatsoever. Not a chance whatsoever. I've just realised that you're actually on mic 2 and not mic 1. So I did have you muted there, so it doesn't matter. But you are muted now. How are you doing, Joe? How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Yeah, I can hear you now. That's so much better. So much better. So much better for the listeners as well. So that was Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons. And we are talking about the Premier League today. As of course, the last day did take place yesterday. And what a fantastic day it was for Joe himself, because he is a Liverpool fan. Mo Salah, of course, breaking the all-time Premier League goal-scoring record for a 38-game season, as he scored his 32nd goal against Brighton yesterday in a 4-0 victory at Anfield, making sure that as well Liverpool stay undefeated at home this season in the Premier League. And I think it's right in saying that the only team at home in all 92 Football League clubs to keep a record intact of not being defeated at home this season. Yeah. So fantastic achievement by them. Other results as well include Tottenham winning by 5-4 against Leicester City at Wembley yesterday.
What a game.
What a game that was, yeah. 9-goal thriller. I mean, you don't get many of those these days. Harry Kane trying his best to catch up to Mo Salah on the last day of the season, but unable to do so. He finishes in second behind the Egyptian king in the goal-scoring race. So Mo Salah finishes off the season with the golden boot. Moving on to Chelsea against Newcastle. Well, Chelsea needed to win this game in order to get into the top 4. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do so, and they were completely thrashed by Newcastle by 3-0. Perez scoring twice before after Dwight Gale's opener in the game. We'll talk about Conte in just.
Has anyone seen or heard from Jack?
Oh no,
He's gone to hiding.
I imagine he's gone into hiding now, and probably until the FA Cup later this week. Broken promises last week as well on the radio show about his pole position podcast. But yeah, never mind. I'm sure he'll turn up soon, especially if Chelsea win the FA Cup this weekend against United. Be sure to make sure that you check out the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel for any preview of that game coming up later this week. Moving on to the rest of the Premier League results, Swansea lost by 2-1 against Stoke. So no matter what happened in that game, both teams were going down because Swansea needed the win and Southampton to lose, and there to be a 10-goal swing. So you can't see that happening. So Swansea were definitely going down. And City, though, they did win against Southampton at St Mary's by 1-0. Gabriel Jesus getting the key goal that not only extended City's fantastic goal-scoring record in the Premier League this season to 106 goals, but they now have achieved 100 points in the Premier League this season. A remarkable achievement for what is one of the best teams, really, that English football has ever seen. I mean, Joe, just quickly before we read off the rest of the results, because the next team that we are going to talk about is Arsenal. How do you see this City team comparing to the Arsenal invincible season of 03 or 04? Do you think it's better than that team, or do you think it's maybe still got a bit way to go? Maybe do you think they need to win back-to-back titles before we can consider this City team better than that Arsenal invincibles team?
It's very, very close, of course, because obviously the big difference is City didn't go undefeated, Arsenal did, but City made the 100 points. It's all like swings and roundabouts. Yeah. Let's be honest, it's one of those, they've got one thing going for them, the team haven't. I think City have got, probably fair to say, better individual players than Arsenal had got. But then again, Arsenal had Henry and Perez. Arsenal had 3 or 4 top-class players, with City have just got a full team of top-class players. I think, obviously, they've got a good chance, City have. I think if they win back-to-back titles, you could say they've surpassed it. Mm-hmm. But obviously, being the only team in the Premier League here to be invincible, Arsenal, that takes some beating.
Yeah, it will certainly take some beating, and I don't think we'll see it beaten by any side in the near future. That's for certain. The money being spent in these transfer windows, really, really difficult to achieve a season like that again. But speaking of achievements, Arsene Wenger's time at Arsenal comes to an end after 22 years. On the 22nd minute as well, the fans at Huddersfield, I think it's still called the John Smith Stadium, applauded the Arsenal manager for a fantastic achievement of managing the club over 22 years. Crystal Palace won by 2-0 against West Bromwich Albion. West Bromwich Albion going down to the Championship, unfortunately. And West Ham beating Everton. David Moyes getting one over his former club by 3-1 at the London Stadium. Good result for him there. Manchester United getting a 1-0 win for Michael Carrick's last game for the football club. Marcus Rashford getting that goal there, and Burnley losing by 2-1 to Bournemouth. So Sean Dyche, fantastic season, ends on a bit of a low note there at home to Bournemouth. But nevertheless, it's not as low as what happened to Antonio Conte at Newcastle yesterday. 3-0 loss. Perez brace before Dwight Gale, opener of the goal. Rafa Benitez finishing 10th in the table, but Antonio Conte's side really under the pressure now, because they won't be playing Champions League football next season. They'll be in the Europa League, and really they only have the FA Cup to try and save their season. But there's been a lot of mixed emotions really as to, does Conte deserve this pressure of what a lot of the media have given him? Because as far as I'm aware, Joe, I haven't really seen a lot of Chelsea fans say that they want him gone. Maybe they're reserving that judgment until after the FA Cup, because certainly 2 trophies in the first 2 seasons in the Premier League would be a fantastic achievement. Premier League, of course, last season, and if they're able to get the FA Cup by the end of this weekend, then it certainly would mark a decent time at the football club so far. I mean, what are your thoughts, really, Joe, on Antonio Conte? Do you think he deserves to stay on at Chelsea next season, or do you think perhaps the board will go over his head and find someone else in to replace him?
I said a few weeks ago that I thought he should stay on as manager, but I can't see Abramovich keeping him on. I think that's still going to be the case. I think regardless of whether he wins the cup, he'll still depart England in the summer. It's one of those. He's done well at Chelsea. Obviously, last season they won the league. It's going to be hard to double up. But if you look at Chelsea under Mourinho, they won the league one season in 2015, and then next season they were battling relegation, and they obviously finished 15th in the end.
I think they finished in 10th or something like that.
They finished 10th in the end.
Yeah, because they sacked him, didn't they? And they brought in. I forget who they brought in, but
Hiddink.
It was Gus
Hiddink.
Yeah.
It's strange. It's very strange. But obviously, they haven't done too bad in the last couple of weeks, apart from yesterday, because they got a result against Liverpool. The draw against Huddersfield wasn't ideal, but Huddersfield were very compact in that game and should have all the credit there. It's strange. I think he's a good manager. It's just the lack of patience from the board doesn't help, does it? And like you said, the fans seem to be behind him. There's only 1 or 2 murmurs on social media of fans, or you can't even really see if they actually are fans or whether the fans of rival teams pretending, sort of thing. Because there's one fan yesterday who was saying that they left the ground at half-time in tears because they couldn't cope or something. It's like, the club doesn't need that.
Well, at least they could get an early train back to London from Newcastle. I mean, that's quite a trek, so there you go.
But in tears, come on. All right, you're losing to Newcastle, but it's not like you lost the cup final yet.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the cup final pressure is coming up against Manchester United this weekend, who, under Jose Mourinho, have been the closest challengers to City at the top of the league, and that is still saying something, because they were 19 points behind by the close of the 38 games yesterday. I mean, does Conte then have to win this FA Cup this weekend against United to keep his job, to at least have some consideration for the job next season?
Of course, he's got to win it. As Gary Neville said, if he wins that this season and the Premier League and does depart, he's still done well in England, because he's still won 2 major trophies in 2 seasons. That's something fantastic. FA Cup. People say, it's lost its magic. For me, it's still a big competition. It's still important. And every season Liverpool are in it, I want them to compete and try and win it. You want your sides to do well in the competition. It's a historic competition, and you want teams to do well. If Chelsea win it, then that's fantastic for Chelsea, and it's another thing on Conte's CV, another trophy. And it can only help him get his next job if he leaves Chelsea this summer. I think it salvages Chelsea's season a little bit, but doesn't save it completely, because obviously they need Champions League football.
Mm.
But I think they'll sign big players regardless, because there's always this claim that, you can't sign big players unless you're in Champions League. But the thing is, Chelsea have done that in the past. They've signed big players without Champions League. They've kept Hazard when they dropped out of the Champions League a few years ago.
Yeah.
And won the Europa League in, was it 2013?
Yeah, it was.
So the whole point is, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's an odd one, really. It's an odd situation because for any other side, especially like Liverpool, Tottenham, and before this season, Arsenal, if you finished 5th and got to the FA Cup, the manager would be praised. There'll be, it'll be considered a good season, and arguably it should still be considered a good season for Chelsea if they do end up in this situation where they're only winning the FA Cup. But if you look back to where they finished last season, of course, when they finished champions, 93 points overall, whereas compared to this season, it's only 70. So it's a 23-point difference. That's close to 7 wins. That is in the difference to what they should be achieving and where they are. Does this come down to the man management then of Conte? Because it seems to me he's not as happy as he was this season as he was last season, and there's been a lot of key players that may have departed the football club during the summer as well, especially like Nemanja Matic and Diego Costa getting his move to Atletico Madrid for January. Do you think because of the fact that Chelsea have struggled to replace those players that perhaps they haven't lived up to the same expectation that they did last season?
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, to be honest. I couldn't understand the Matic thing, but I know
it's weird to sell to your rivals, isn't it?
Yeah, I know that wasn't Conte's decision. Apparently, that was Abramovich who saw the money and thought, we'll let him go to United. But you just wouldn't sell to your rival categorically.
Mm.
You look at clubs. United and Liverpool don't do business. United and City don't do business. You look at the other top 6 clubs; they don't do business with one another.
No,
or very rarely. And I think last time you'd probably say is normally Ox to Liverpool was one of the last ones if you count Arsenal in their big 6 thing.
Well, I think what it would be is, like, no disrespect for Oxlade-Chamberlain, because what he's done at Liverpool is fantastic, but at Arsenal he wasn't really considered a starter.
Yeah.
So I understand what you mean by business between the top 2 clubs. But initially, I think a lot of people saw that Arsenal were getting a steal to get an Oxlade-Chamberlain for 30 million, but he's gone and proved it completely different at Liverpool. Yeah. So it's credit to him. But I think, like, the only times I've ever seen 2 top clubs selling between each other is the situation at Arsenal because of the fact that they moved to a new stadium and they had to pay off that building the new stadium. So they sold the likes of Fabregas off to Barcelona and Roman van Persie to United. That's the only time I've really seen it. And
Sanchez
Sanchez in January to Manchester United as well.
It's very strange. Costa, obviously, everyone knows that there was a massive bust up between him and Conte, and it was irreparable. And he wanted to go back to Spain, so yeah, we left with their wishes. Then they signed Morata at £70 million. I thought, he should be a good signing. I did think the price tag was a little bit big, but I thought it'd be a good signing. He has got some goals, but he's not lived up to the expectation, and he could be departing the bridge this summer.
Yeah.
With a return to Juve, highly likely. Some of the signings just haven't worked this summer, and I don't know whether it's the system, whether they're just not used to the league. I'm not sure, but I noticed yesterday, Conte on the touch, he's not his normal animated self. He just looked a dejected figure. He just stood there staring into space, like, what am I supposed to do here, sort of thing. It's a bit of a strange one.
It is a strange one, isn't it? I mean, Eden Hazard with Chelsea this season, 12 goals, the top goal scorer, and you mentioned people like Morata really not really stepping up to the situation, not really filling in Diego Costa's boots, who, was one of the top goal scorers in the Premier League this last season with 20. So there was 8 goals gone missing there. And you're talking about Hazard having to step up to his pace. Even Hazard wasn't even that good because he only scored 16 last season. So there's 4 goals missing from him there. So there's a lot of goals missing from this team really, and they need to figure out a way to change that and make sure things don't happen like that next season. Otherwise, Conte will probably pretty much be out of Chelsea next season, because you think if he doesn't come up with something and they finish in Europa League spots again, he can't be there, can he? No, he can't be there. Another man that probably may not be there at his club for too much longer is Mauricio Pochettino. Of course, Tottenham finished 3rd in the Premier League, qualified for the Champions League and all that, but still no trophies and real no spending whatsoever by Tottenham really in the transfer windows. You really think about it, they're not really up there with likes of United and City and Chelsea spending 150, 200 million per window. And Pochettino said after the game yesterday that if we want to be real contenders for big trophies, we need to review a little. First of all, I need to speak to Daniel, then we'll know what we are going to do. I think it's a moment the club needs to take risks and, if possible, work harder than the previous season to be competitive again. So Pochettino is pretty much admitting that, this Spurs side is nowhere near what City and United are achieving in the Premier League, and they need to spend in order to make that happen. Joe, what are your thoughts on what Pochettino said? Do you think this is an ultimatum by him saying if you don't spend this summer or by the end of the next season, if we're not close to winning the title, I'm off. I'm going to go. Do you think potentially this could be Pochettino's last season?
Sounds like it. Tottenham haven't won a trophy since 2008, and I know the fans keep on going about, we finished above Liverpool for 10 seasons, we finished above Arsenal the last, was it 3 seasons or something? Or 2 seasons?
Actually, last season was the first time that they finished above them.
2 seasons?
No, because the season before that was when they battled it against Leicester in the league, and then Arsenal overtook them on the last day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But they finished, obviously, this season and last season. That's what we're back
to.
And they're going about all this. But that's not a trophy at the end of the day. You can't put that in your trophy cabinet.
No.
And that's the main thing. And obviously, Pochettino's a very talented manager, and he's got some very talented players. There's question marks over whether Kane will go this summer because apparently Madrid is sniffing around. I don't know whether there's any truth in that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Madrid apparently sniffing around Pochettino if they decide to get rid of Zidane, which I think will all depend on the Champions League final. I think if Madrid win, then Zidane probably stay on, because that's what's been keeping him alive, because he was supposed to be going in February, but he got past PSG, and bit of a lifeline. If Liverpool win the final, then I think Zidane will go, and Pochettino is highly likely to go to Madrid. I think Tottenham Hotspur are probably about 3-4 big signings away from competing for the title. And if you think about it, in the last couple of seasons when they've been competing for the title, one of the seasons was against Leicester, and they slipped away again. And then last season against Chelsea, they didn't really trouble Chelsea too much.
No, they didn't.
It's because the other teams were poorer. Excuse me, English.
Yeah, sorry.
That they looked like they were better than they were, and that they were competing for the title. Harry Kane was on fire the last couple of seasons. He's done well this season. He's scored more goals than the last couple of seasons, but still something missing. Dele Alli hasn't been getting the same amount of goals. Son's got more goals, but obviously he's had hot and cold patches. They do need some more consistency, Spurs do, and I think they are a couple of players short from competing. Yeah,
and you'd have to think as well with this new stadium that they're building and they're going to move into next season, it could be still take a bit of the transfers budget away from them in that sense as well. So it could be a bit difficult for them to try and compete, but it's certainly going to be probably the most interesting summer in Tottenham Hotspur's history this summer coming up, especially what after Pochettino said there. Anyways, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then after we come back, we'll talk about the managerial merry-go-round, specifically looking at Rafa Benitez, David Moyes, Claude Puel, Mark Hughes, and Sam Allardyce, and questioning whether or not any of those guys will still be at their football clubs at the start of next season. So we'll be back after the break, but before then, enjoy Take That These Days. That was Take That These Days. You're listening to the Let's Talk Sports Show here on Calon 105 FM. So now, Joe, we're going to be talking about the managerial merry-go-round, as I would like to call it, a merry-go-round, because you never know where these managers are going to go. Rafa Benitez, David Moyes, Claude Puel, Mark Hughes, and Sam Allardyce are the ones that I've pointed out. Of course, they've all had a mixture of seasons. Rafa Benitez finishing 10th in the Premier League with Newcastle. David Moyes coming in for West Ham and bringing them up to 13th for keeping them away from relegation. And also you got Claude Puel coming into Leicester City halfway through the season as well, keeping them away from relegation and into the top half of the table. Mark Hughes as well, leaving Stoke, who have now gone down, and saving Southampton, who have now stayed up. So that's a funny situation one there. And then as well, we've got Sam Allardyce at Everton as well, bringing them into almost the European spots. If you had a bit more time, might be able to do that. But strangely enough, for the first time really in quite some time, all of the top 6 clubs have finished in plus goal difference, and everyone below them has finished in negative goal difference. So kind of raises questions to what kind of standard is the Premier League these days. It's a separate top six for sure, and then the rest of them just figure out a way to finish wherever you want to finish. But Rafa Benitez at Newcastle, certainly at the start of the season, said that, he's dealing with a side that is only good enough really to play in the Championship. And then he had the January transfer window, and things kind of changed to him now. And now he's finished into the top 10 in the table. And Mike Ashley has said that he wants Rafa Benitez to stay on because he's a good manager, and he's prepared to give him the funds in order to help him out to do that. But it's odd that it's coming a year after really Rafa Benitez put that first request in. So do you think Rafa Benitez has got confidence really to stay at Newcastle moving forward? Because, he certainly likes the fans, but it's whether or not Mike Ashley's got any faith in him to actually give him the funds to keep this team in the Premier League for the future.
Yeah, that's the thing. Rafa Benitez is a very loyal person, very loyal manager. But the thing is, if you're not going to back him, he's not going to stay because he won't be able to do the job. That's the thing. It's touch and go on whether he's going to stay at Newcastle. Obviously, if Mike Ashley stays true to his word, then I think he'll stay. But obviously, you can't really. I think Newcastle fans will agree with me here. You can't really trust Mike Ashley because he said many different things down the years, and the vast majority of them have been untrue. Oh, I'm going to sell the club, and then it didn't happen. They had the Dubai investors, was it Christmas time?
Yeah.
That wanted to buy. Then that's all just gone quiet.
It's an odd situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you would hope that for Newcastle's sake that Rafa Benitez would stay on at the football club because he's a great manager. He's shown it over the years, of course, with Liverpool, with Chelsea as well. And during his time at Real Madrid, he had a good time there as well. So it's hoping that he can stay at that football club. But whether or not he will stay is a different story because it is that faith in Mike Ashley, whether or not he will spend in the window. Because if he doesn't spend, then Rafa's gone. That's for certain. I don't think they'll be able to hang on to him if they don't give him the funds in order to progress forward. Because Newcastle was one of those sides really back in the day that they were competing in Europe almost. And they would love to get back to that kind of stage in the Premier League, but it's still a long way away. 39 goals scored and 47 conceded in the Premier League. I think that's one of the lowest, really, inside the top 10 clubs. Yeah, it is the lowest of all the top 10 clubs. So they certainly need to find a potent goal scorer next season, a prolific goal scorer next season, in order to keep them in that top 10 battle. I mean, with this Newcastle side, do you think they could potentially repeat what they did under Benitez next season, or do you think potentially it's not going to go so well?
Depends on whether they spend. If you get, like I said, the transfer budget that Rafa wants, and he gets the players that he wants, then he's definitely capable of achieving that. But if not, I don't think he's got the case. He's done very well this season with the squad that he's got to achieve what he's done.
David Moyes at West Ham United, similar kind of situation to Sam Allardyce and Mark Hughes and Claude Puel, really coming in at this time where the side was really struggling in the Premier League, looking to keep themselves away from the drop. And he's managed to come into this team and turn it around and to really keep them in the Premier League. But his contract's run out at the football club now, so they're under no obligation to keep him there. But do you think David Moyes has done enough in order to get the West Ham job for next season?
Yeah, I do to be honest, because when they come in, they were struggling down the bottom of the table. He's got them organised, and they finished, was it 13th in the end?
Yeah, 13th in the Premier League.
Which isn't too bad considering their situation at the start of the season when they come in. They were struggling to find goals, struggling to keep their goals, the ball out of the back of their own net. And obviously he's worked hard. He's got Arnautovic scoring. Did I read something like 11 goals this season?
Yeah, he's certainly got the best out of him, hasn't he?
And then he's got, obviously, Lanzini chipping in and a few of the others that were struggling at the start of the season. They're all scoring goals. Defensively, they're more solid. He's swapped Joe Hart out and put Adrian back in, who wasn't bad, to be honest, last season. But obviously, when you've got a big name like Joe Hart, you think, we'll put him in because he's obviously supposed to be better.
Yeah.
It obviously hasn't worked out. And he's found a system that works for West Ham, and he's done a solid job in the end.
Yeah, he has done a solid job. 13th in the Premier League, 42 points. So pretty much safety was confirmed around about 3 weeks ago, and he's kept him in the Premier League for another season, that's for certain. But West Ham in this stadium, I'm worried about their spending really as to whether or not they'll be able to keep up with some of the other sides in the Premier League because they're still, looking to pay off this stadium that they're renting out, and it really gives the support to David Moyes or whoever comes in. I hope they keep David Moyes in there because he's certainly done enough to earn the job in that situation. Next on the list, Claude Puel, Leicester City, finishing in 9th. In the Premier League, 47 points. But the questions are raised as to really whether or not the players want to play underneath him. Certainly, it was only a couple of weeks ago that stories were starting to emerge once more of Leicester City players being unhappy with their manager. And where have we seen that before? Claudio Ranieri after the Premier League title winning season. Craig Shakespeare at the end of last year. Certainly, it's got a club history, really, of pushing out managers on a quick basis if the players are unhappy with them. Claude Puel, though, gets Leicester City into the top half of the table after what was a horrible reign, really, under Craig Shakespeare. How do you think Leicester City are going to respond to this? Do you think Claude Puel's out of that situation now, or do you think they're going to keep him in for the summer at least?
It's a strange one. I thought it was a strange appointment in the first place. Because he didn't really do that well at Southampton. He got them 8th, and people said it was a success, and he got into a cup final.
Yeah.
But the football wasn't fantastic, and in the latter half of the season, they struggled to score goals. And the thing is, if the players aren't happy, they're going to kick up enough of a fuss that the owners are just going to say, like this is Ranieri, enough is enough. And I understand that a lot of the fans aren't happy either. So if the fans aren't happy, the players aren't happy, it can only spell one thing, really.
Yeah.
That's you out the door.
I mean, I hope Claude Puel gets a chance because that Leicester City side can still get back into Europe, but then again, it's a case of can they hang on to those key players in order to get them to that stage again? Kasper Schmeichel, can they keep him? Is he going to bolt soon? Riyad Mahrez, he only just handed in a transfer request back in January. Of course, he's retracted that request, but it still doesn't mean anything really. He's still going to be attracted by a lot of football clubs around the world because he's a quality player still in his peak at Leicester City. And of course, you got Jamie Vardy as well. Through and through Leicester City man ever since arriving at the football club, turning down offers from Arsenal last season, but certainly finishing 9th in the Premier League. How many more opportunities is he going to get to move to a big club and get that kind of big day that he expects? What do you think the ambition should be for Leicester City next season? Because, of course, that would determine as to what kind of manager they would get. So what do you think the ambition should be for Leicester City? Do you think they should be looking to potentially do something like Burnley have done and finish in 7th in the Premier League and be the best of the rest, really, in that sense?
Yeah, they've got to be trying to compete for a European place, haven't they? Let's be honest. They had the taste of Champions League football a couple of years ago. I don't think they'll see it again, or for a long, long time at least. They've got to be competing for a Europa League spot, surely, because they've got enough players, quality players there. They've got enough money to spend in the market, so surely. Another thing on Puel is, I heard a rumour going around in the week that they're considering trying to poach Wagner from Huddersfield.
Oh, really?
Which would be an interesting move. Whether they want a more attacking style of play, that'd be interesting to see, because Puel likes quite a defensive system, doesn't he? From what I understand. He likes everything compact. So whether the brand of football's not working.
Well, you say attacking style of play, but Huddersfield only scored 28 goals in the Premier League this season, so they scored more goals than Mo Salah did, or less goals, than Mo Salah did. So, but I understand your point, because Claude Puel is a bit of a defensive manager, and certainly if they can find someone that's got a bit more attacking flair, a bit more person that's willing to take the risks moving forward, then certainly those opportunities of European football next season will open up more, and potentially they could go on a cup run as well. They certainly got the squad quality in order to do that. So I think there's a good chance, but they have to hang on to those key players. They have to hang on to Mahrez, really, the instigator of all their results, really, a key playmaker. And if they don't hang on to him, I think they might struggle to get into those European spots next season. But yes or no answer, do you think they're an established Premier League team now, Leicester City?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so as well. I think I don't think they'll be in a relegation battle really, but I think mid-table pushing towards Europa League is a good spots for them. Moving on to Mark Hughes at Southampton. Of course, he was with Stoke earlier on in the season. Stoke have gone down, blaming him for most part of the transfers and whatnot he's done at the football club. But he's managed to come to Southampton, and despite the loss yesterday, the key result for them was winning in midweek against Swansea to keep themselves in the league. But really, when you look on the face of it, Joe, that's the only result that's gone his way, really, for him in the season. Because, there's been draws and there's been wins here and there, but he struggled to get his first win for, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks at the football club, even getting eliminated out the FA Cup. Mark Hughes, though, at Southampton, the players seem to like him a little bit. Does he stay on next season? Do you think he deserves to have at least a crack at a full season at Southampton?
I think so, because he's kept them up. And the big question is, who would Southampton get otherwise? Because not many people are going to want to walk into that situation with the football club the way it was.
I mean, there's been a lot of managers coming in and out there, haven't they? I mean, some of them have been poached by other clubs. Pochettino to Tottenham, Ronald Koeman to Everton, and Claude Puel was pretty much booted out the door with the 2 feet because of what we described by him. So is it kind of strange then that Mark Hughes is being considered really for the job next season? Do you think then track record should say that Mark Hughes should be given the boot because arguably he's finished the worst out of those last 3 managers at the football club?
Yeah, he's finished worse, but he's had the less amount of games, hasn't he?
Yeah,
and he's technically had a worse squad. You look at his record at Stoke before this season; it was quite good.
Yeah.
Same with Fulham,
mid-table kind of side. Yeah.
Obviously, QPR, they were on the slippery slope when he took over there, so he's not got a bad record. He's not got a fantastic record.
Yeah.
But he could potentially, with the right investment, get them to mid-table next season.
That is the question, though. The right investment. Is the investment going to come? We'll have to wait and see in the summer for that. And a final manager before we go to a music break. Sam Allardyce at Everton. Similar kind of situation as West Ham. They were pushing down, looking like they could be in a relegation battle if they weren't careful. But Sam Allardyce took over and they pushed themselves up to 8th in the Premier League. And they look like they could be on the brink, really, of pushing into those European spots. Of course, they did spend a lot of money last summer, but a lot of transfers really didn't pay off. Like Sancho, I think his name is Sandro, the Spanish striker. He didn't really play that much. Davy Klaassen from Ajax, he had a decent career in the Dutch league, but he hasn't really made it in the Premier League either. Rooney's slowing down a little bit. Sigurdsson can't stay on the field. A lot of questions will be asked about Everton's transfer policy this summer, but nothing's really going to happen until they they decide on who they want as the manager. So after his performance this season, Joe, pushing Everton up to 8th in the Premier League, I know you never like to see Everton do well as a Liverpool fan, but Sam Allardyce, has he done enough to earn the job for next season at least at Everton Football Club?
I don't think so, no.
No. Why is that?
Well, there's a lot of unrest at the club still. Some of the players aren't keen on. I know he keeps saying his press conference, "No, there's no problem between me and Rooney. There's no problem with me between me and this player, that player, the other player." But the thing is, the players don't seem to be that thrilled playing under him. He kicked Lookman out the door, which was a bizarre one because he was one of their better players this season. Yeah, the youngster. He's gone off to Leipzig and he's had a great season over in Germany. And there's talk that he might not want to come back. You've got Rooney who's going out the door.
Yeah.
To the States because he's had an
Well, that's not been confirmed yet. Sam Allardyce did slander that rumour earlier in the week because he didn't think that Rooney has said anything to him about potentially leaving. So
I find it bizarre though because he was apparently saying his goodbyes the other day and cleared his locker. So I don't know. I don't know how true that is. But obviously I don't know much about Everton. But I was talking to an Evertonian the other day, and he was saying there's 3 things that are rumoured to be happening in the next season or 2 at Everton. Number 1 is Allardyce to go.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Rooney to go.
Yeah.
And number 3 is Ken Wright to leave the board.
Number 4 potentially move into a new stadium because they can't be in between a church and a park for too long because that's just not good football club management really for the ambitions that they really have at that football club, is it?
And obviously number 4 is the stadium, which has pretty much been nailed on. They've just got to obviously pay for it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, and get permission to build it. But it's a strange thing. Everton Football Club, they want to be in Europe and they want to be having these big players for when they move into the new stadium. Because obviously they're going to have a 50,000 seater stadium?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's one of those. They need to be playing a better brand of football because I think that's half the problem under Sam Allardyce. Yes, he's kept them up, but they're not playing at the brand of football that you would associate with Everton. Normally they play quite, under Moyes, they played quite fast football, didn't they? Quite paced, quite controlled.
Yeah.
With Allardyce, it's just been rigid, long balls. and the Everton fans aren't happy. They did the survey, which I think was a bit out of order.
Yeah,
they sent it to the fans.
definitely.
Oh, rate your manager from 0 to 10.
I was so angry when I saw that. It's like the club should not be treating their manager like that. No club should treat their manager like that.
I heard about it, and I thought it was a joke at first. And then when I found out it was serious, I had to chuckle to myself because I thought, what on earth is this football club doing?
Is ridiculous, but I think Sam Allardyce deserves another chance at Everton next season. But it's a question as to whether or not they're going to give him the chance and whether or not they still have that ambition really of finding that top class manager to push them forward to the next level. Anyways, we're going to take a little bit of a music break now, but after we come back after the break, we'll be talking about the England squad selection coming up this Wednesday. Gareth Southgate selecting his 23-man squad to take to Russia for the World Cup in June next month. But before then, let's have a listen to a little bit of an England World Cup song, classic World in Motion by The New Order. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Sports show here on Calon 105 FM. That was World in Motion by New Order. And interesting fact to tell you, Joe, I don't know if you know this. Of course, that is John Barnes doing the rap at the end of the song. But did you know that all the England players from that World Cup all had a chance to had a go at the rap? And, of course, one of the popular players at the time, of course, was Paul Gascoigne. But and apparently he was fantastic. He was the best at doing the rap. But the reason why that he wasn't selected to do the actual rap for the track was because no one could understand him because of his Geordie accent. So he's like, you got the whole dingy. I can't do a Geordie accent, so I'm not going to even try. But that's an interesting fact if you want to tell your friends ahead of the World Cup when you hear that song. And speaking of the World Cup, of course, Russia coming up for England, and Gareth Southgate is going to be selecting a squad on a Wednesday for the tournament. 23-man squad to be selected. Of course, they've got the internationals as well before then, one against Nigeria, and I can't remember when the other one is. I'll have to quickly check that for you. But then, of course, they're off to the World Cup itself and playing against the likes of Tunisia and Belgium in the group stages before seeing whether or not they could get to the knockout tournament itself. Joe, I suppose the big question now is then, who are you going to be picking for your 23-man squad? I asked you before the show to put together a squad for me. Imagine if you are Mr. Gareth Southgate himself, you have to grow a little bit taller, but anyhow, then you get there.
There's a few penalties.
And score a few penalties as well. But who is your 23-man squad for England World Cup Russia 2018? Go.
Goalkeepers, Butland, Pickford, Pope.
Ooh, okay. Right, that's an interesting one. So why haven't we gone for Joe Hart then?
Last time I was thinking, Joe Hart was definitely being it. Start of the season, I thought, and then obviously he's had a woeful season for West Ham.
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, his experience would be key, but you need to give the younger goalkeeper like Nick Pope, who's had a fantastic season, a chance. Tommy Heaton would have been a good choice, but obviously Pope, he's had his injury, and Pope's been able to keep him out the side since. So obviously you want to take a few youngsters just to give them the experience for later tournaments, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Butland and Pickford are obvious choices because they've both been fantastic for their clubs this season.
So we've got Butland, Pope, and Pickford. Who's your number one out of those?
Butland for me.
Butland?
I know he's been relegated with Stoke, but he's made the most saves out of any goalkeeper in the Premier League this season.
Yeah.
And obviously in the World Cup he's going to be peppered with shots. So.
Oh, okay. Okay,
should
cool.
Be promising.
Cool. Just quickly before we move on to the rest of the field, you got a formation in mind for this? Or you gonna go with Gareth Southgate's impressive 3-5-2-1 or whatever it is, or that kind of attacking wing back?
I didn't even pick up the formation.
You didn't think of one. Never mind.
You just said pick a squad.
That's fine. That's fine.
Let's just say that these players are capable of playing in multiple formations.
That's the kind of stuff I want to hear.
You could do Southgate's 3 at the back, or you could do the 4 at the back. You could do 5 at the back. You could do.
I mean, that's
4-4-2.
That's what I want to hear, because then at least you're not limited. Anyway, so you got Pickford, Pope, and Butland for your first 3 men. What's the rest of the 20 then? Starting off with the defenders.
Sounds strange because I've got 3 right backs, but bear with me.
Right.
Got Walker,
yeah.
And I know that I put him in because Southgate's going to play him as like a centre back in a 3 at the back sort of thing.
Yeah.
So my thinking is you could have Trippier,
okay.
Because he's obviously a good choice.
Had a good season at Tottenham, yeah.
I was thinking Trent Alexander-Arnold's done well for Liverpool this season, and like with Pope, it's experience for later on, at a major tournament. That's my thinking. Because in a couple of years' time, I think he will be one of the 2 choices for right back for maybe the next Euros.
Yeah.
Cahill.
Yep.
Experience head. Stones, obvious choice. Dyer, which I was thinking he can also use as a midfielder. So
yeah, I would put him as a midfielder, but never mind. Go on.
Maguire, Bertrand and Rose.
Maguire, Bertrand and Rose. Okay. So we don't have the likes of Smalling or Phil Jones in there from United. But we do have an interesting choice in Cahill. So you said that you went for Cahill really over the experience then of the international tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, because with Chris Smalling, I don't really think he's excelled that well at Manchester United this season. I think he's struggled at times, and I think he's struggled in previous tournaments. He's not really done that well. He struggled with the pace. So I know Cahill isn't that pacey, but I think he's better in terms of he can read the situation better to deal with the fact. Does that make sense? He might not have the pace as he's what I mean. He's got the same sort of like
he's got the
mind,
the mentality.
So he could put himself in the position to try and stop the ball before it can happen.
Yeah, I get that. Who was your last one that you said? You got Maguire, Rose, and Bertrand. Okay, cool. All right.
Obvious choices on the left side of the fence. Really.
Yeah. I think you were definitely. Well, it's a tough battle really between Rose or Bertrand for that left-handed side. But that should bring about the best of them really. Midfield. So I'm sticking Dyer in your midfield. I'm not.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It was just when I was looking at the squad selector thing that was used in the admin defence. So I was like, I'll put him in because he can play both positions. So.
Yeah, I think he plays most of the time in midfield for Tottenham. So,
that was my thinking.
Yeah. Anyway, who's the rest of the midfield?
Henderson.
Yeah.
Ali.
Dele Alli.
Yeah. Lallana if he's fit.
You're right.
Lingard.
Yeah.
Sterling.
Yeah.
And then Drinkwater and Livermore just to fill up the spaces, pretty much.
Livermore is an interesting selection.
I would have had Ox, but obviously Ox is...
And Drinkwater is actually an interesting selection as well. Because you've got the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek and... Chabala from Watford as well. Ruben Loftus-Cheek from Crystal Palace that have really been playing more often than Drinkwater and who was the last one you said? Livermore, yeah, sorry. Well, Livermore, he's a bit of an in and out, but that form at West Bromwich Albion has not really paid off because now they're going down to the Championship, and you've got Drinkwater who's struggling to get into the Chelsea squad. So what was your reasoning really for putting Drinkwater in? I should say because that's probably the most surprising pick out of those midfield lot.
Well, he's obviously from his Leicester time at Leicester, he's got the ability to great passing ability, control the play, and obviously he's got previous tournament experience.
Yeah,
so that was my thinking.
Right,
obviously he was at the Euros and he played a few games there. So
okay, that's fine. And finally, then your forwards. What have we got?
Harry Kane. Jamie Vardy. Marcus Rashford. And the last pick, I was struggling to think of a fourth striker, and I thought, well, he's been doing quite well, and he has done well in previous major tournaments, so I've gone for Danny Welbeck.
Okay. So the argument really with Danny Welbeck is that he doesn't really play often enough for Arsenal, but I think you made the case in point because of how well he does perform in an England shirt. He does deserve the opportunity to go to this World Cup in Russia.
Plus, there's not really many strikers to choose from. You've got Jermaine Defoe, but he's aging. Glenn Murray's a name that's been touted, but I wouldn't say he's good enough, let's just say. No disrespect to Glenn Murray, he's a good player for Brighton, but that's as far as it goes. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, really. So the squad announcements come up on the Wednesday, the 16th, followed by Nigeria friendly on the 2nd of June, and that's followed up by Costa Rica on the 7th of June, and then roughly around about a week later, the squad leaves for Russia, and then on the 18th of June, the opening game against Tunisia, followed by Panama on the 24th, and then on the 28th is that final key game against Belgium, probably the most toughest game of the group there. Quickly, Joe, before we finish off the show, what are your thoughts then for England this summer? How far do you think they can go? How well do you think they can do in the group? Just general thoughts overall of England this summer.
I think they'll finish second in the group.
Yeah.
And they've got the potential to get to the quarterfinals. It just depends on whether the drawing the last 16 is kind.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of predictions say that we're either going to face either Germany or Brazil in the quarterfinal stages. So it's going to be tough either way. But second in the group, does that mean then you think that Belgium potentially could beat him in that last game?
Yeah, I think obviously we'll get the points against Panama?
Panama and Tunisia, yeah.
And Tunisia, we'll get the points there. And I probably get a draw against Belgium potentially.
I mean, it certainly would be an interesting one, that's for certain, and certainly could be a promising World Cup. But this is a very young England side, one of the youngest that's ever gone to the World Cup for some time. So hopefully they'll be able to live up to the expectation and see what they can do. Joe, any final thoughts before we finish off the show? No.
It's just been a good Premier League season, hasn't it?
Yeah. Happy with Salah.
Yeah.
Hoping that he stays in the summer.
Yeah.
Seems to say that he wants to stay.
He'll stay.
He'll stay. For at least one more year. Maybe.
Or two.
Well, you'll be hoping there were two, but
I'll be hoping for the rest of his career. But
yeah. Anyways, thank you very much for listening to the Let's Talk Sports show here on Calon 105 FM. If you are just joining us and you have missed the show, be sure to check out our YouTube channel and be able to catch it on there, and also catch it on Facebook as well. Let's Talk Sports. Search that on Facebook. Twitter as well is Let's Talk Sport 12. And hope to see you soon. So to play us out is the Scissor Sisters with Fire with Fire. Hope you have a good rest of your Monday.